Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Industrial Community Development. On the committee is myself, Councilor Sasslaw, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Rossignol, Councilor Sharris. Also in attendance is Councilor Manning Martin and Council President Turco. Why don't we go right to you, Mr. Bellavance, and you were charged with changing some language and probably have that done for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kurt Bellavance, Community Development Director. At the last Industrial and Community Development Subcommittee meeting, there was some language proposed as an amendment to the original language by Councilor McGinn. That language was incorporated into the document that you should have before you this evening. Some of the changes, just to highlight some of the changes, it was trying to be more consistent in regards to the first section, the purpose of a residential overlay, to basically add more information to a future developer of what exactly we're looking for within that district. It also adds language about promoting more efficient use of the land while still protecting natural resources, referring to high quality design. On the second page, it goes on to include, as in section H, the provisions of inclusionary zoning. Previously, that was in the dimensional chart, but what the language here now incorporated is more consistent with what we have in other parts of the zoning ordinance. So that way, it's just the language is similar, and we're not varying from that, so that it's easily understood. If you continue on to that subsection K, it talks about making sure that the it says here, shall deem supersede the provisions of Section 8 building and residential development under Section 615 within the flood boundary district or the wetland conservancy district is prohibited. So just to make that clear, that we're not interested in moving forward projects within the flood district. That's a pretty clear message from some of the city councils and want to see that, so we've added that language. If you go forward to the site and design criteria, what was added to that under applicability was just language basically stating that the overlay is self-contained, so you can't use dimensional requirements from both. You can't pick and choose. If you're applying under this special permit, you would be required to follow the guidelines and the regulations of the special permit. That way you don't have someone looking to change a height, change a setback, or things like that based on one zoning, but trying to apply it to a different use. Some additional language that was added in that next subsection, framework for review. Just a part about energy considerations. So moving forward, we want to see more energy efficient structures being constructed, taking into consideration how they power and run those structures, and that they're energy efficient as well. I think there was one more, and I think that was the last piece that was amended in part of, one more piece on, I believe it's page 3, under the framework and review process, subsection C, site improvements. Under street furniture and benches, bike racks and signage was added. So that was something that we would be reviewing, and we'd hope to have them install as well. So that small language was added as well. That's kind of a highlight of what the changes were since the last time we had met and were proposed. But I'm here, happy to answer any questions you would have about the language itself, as well as the changes. And the one last thing, everything here is referred to as 6.15. The mill overlay district, which is moving forward, is 6.15, and this would be 6.16. So when we put the final draft forward, it would be 6.16.
Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Were you charged with fixing maps? Has any map been changed that you'd like to point out, or?
I believe the subcommittee had voted on the maps at the last subcommittee meeting. I believe the mall area was addressed, and then we had I believe we removed 3 and 4, sections 3 and 4 on Route 1, and we still had 1 and 2 remaining, from what I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Any questions, Council? Councilor McGinn, then Councilor Sasslaw, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your question about the map, Mr. Chairman, there was an adjustment voted on that I don't think was reflected in the package, which was that one of the parcels was just the rear portion of the parcel was identified, that's not in the current draft. So
The clerk says he has that.
he has it in his report. Clerk has it, but we don't have it in our package, right?
Right.
Correct. Okay.
But Mr. Bellavance has it in his report.
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Bellavance, there was also some discussion about potentially adding some language that would make sure that the mix of uses is preserved. Did you give that any additional thought? And if so, do you have anything to suggest there?
I didn't add that. I did want to try to get this out the next morning for the board. And that's something I do recall you mentioning, but it wasn't a specific language that I had in mind or thought I could add, but I would be open for other suggestions in regards to that.
And the two other things that kind of occurred to me as I looked at this were there was some concern about, kind of this long-range scenario where it became, more economically viable to build out all 85 or more acres of just strictly residential at some point in time. That would create a density that goes beyond what was envisioned here. And at one point, either I think maybe in your comments at the last meeting, you said that might be able to be addressed with a cap on the number of units or a project of no more than X amount of buildings or something to that effect that might allay any of those concerns. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I mean, certainly the overlay is meant to be a mixed-use development combination of residential and commercial. So that's something we could add under purpose, or even under the district regulations to cap that.
And the last comment I would make, Mr. Chairman, is there's nothing in here that requires first floor commercial. So, you could under this as it's drafted now, you could have a building there with first floor residential, and that may be okay. That may be fine, but I don't think you would want a building with first floor residential directly next to a building that is first floor commercial. I think there should be some minimum amount of space. So if that condition were to exist, I think there should be some kind of a minimum setback established to provide some adequate separation between a building that might include first floor residential and first floor commercial. When I've gone into areas like this and I've seen buildings like that too close together, it's a very strange feel, and I don't think it's one that we would want to encourage. So that would be my last input, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Would you like to address that?
I think under the section 615 district regulations. I think that's a regulation that we could add that could be basically maintaining first floor commercial or a minimum setback, and you make it larger, maybe say like 200 feet or something like that, which would cause a difference. And then it gives the option of someone developing a project, the either or, and as they come before the council as a special permit, you could see what the options were.
That type of restriction, Mr. Chairman, makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Councilor Sasslaw, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I just had a question as far as the document here, and if we start with 6.15.4.3, it talks about construction review committee process prior to completing a special permit application. So what I wanted to understand is, this is a pretty meaty document. There's a lot of requirements, a lot of teeth in it. And as far as making sure the requirements are met, assuming that we pass the overlay and now we start getting special permits, I'd like to know what your expectation is, how the flow of the project will go. I guess it looks like there's something that'll happen probably before it gets to us, and who's in charge of actually making sure that, you know, all of this verbiage and requirements are actually followed to the letter of the law?
Thank you, Councilor Sasslaw. Mr. Bellavance, please.
Thank you. Right now in place, we have the Construction Review Committee, so we meet on a regular basis, once, probably maybe 2 times a month, on all the different projects that come before the city, whether it's a allowed use or a special permit use. And there are certain criteria that we would go by through site plan. This would be additional criteria that we'd want to take a look at and go through with the process. It's something that we may want to include. Right now we include fire, police, engineering, health department, light plant, planning, historic commission, conservation. So everybody gets their hands on the material and provides feedback. So that's the similar process that we would follow in regards to this. That
So-
would be prior before coming to the council.
So it'd be safe to assume by the time the special permit application shows up before us to vote it up or down, we as a council can assume that all the requirements that are spelled out in this document have been met?
We would, and if they weren't, then we'd also comment on that and let you know if we thought it fell short of certain areas.
Great, appreciate it. No further comments.
Welcome. Thank you, Councilor Sasslaw. I appreciate it. Councilor Melville, welcome. Feel free to add anything at any point. Any other councilors? Councilor McGinn, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also have a couple of receipts in our regular meeting package tonight that deal with this to some extent. And I don't know how you want to handle that. Do you want to receive those now and consider them?
Let's receive them now.
So then under suspension of the rules, I would move to receive from the regular meeting package of the City Council February 14, 2019 meeting, item 8N and item 8K.
You heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Councilor
we
Gravel.
don't have the whole committee here. Why would you be accepting a receipt of a documentation on behalf of the whole committee for the subcommittee?
That's a good point. Well, can we table that, Councilor McGinn? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
All
why I asked first.
you,
That's
Councilor
why I
Gravel.
asked first, Mr. Chairman. So
Okay,
I
that was my
relying on your
error.
discretion. And if we want to deal with that later, we can most
Yeah,
certainly
we will.
can.
Thank you,
Th-
Councilor
Thank you,
Gravel.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other councilors, please? Councilor McGinn added, suggested some language about first floor, commercial, residential. Is there any desire to define that, Council? Any of the committee members? we don't want to kick this back again and then have to meet again. So if there's no opposition, we will accept the language tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor McGinn.
yeah, I mean, I think we heard Mr. Belvane's comment kind of generally about what that language might look like, but we haven't reduced that to writing, and I don't have that spelled out to put into a motion. So again, I think it would be prudent to allow, if it's the will of the committee to see that additional language, then I think we ought to give Mr. Bellavance an opportunity to do that, and so that would be my suggestion.
Fellow committee members, anybody want to let Mr. Bellavance take a swing at it? And Councilor Sharris, please.
Just one question to it. Thank you, Chairman. To Kurt, did you say there is language there that could refer to, reference to that motion that Councilor McGinn is speaking about?
No, I gave an option of how, under section 6.5153 district regulations, that we could add. They basically list the regulations out, that we could add one that referenced the buildings required to maintain either a first floor commercial or have a setback of, say, 200 feet in regards to other residential units. That was just a suggestion that, based on what I've heard tonight.
Through you, Chairman. Councilor McGinn, is that language that you would find acceptable right now?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor McGinn.
Yeah, through you to Councilor Charis. Yeah, there were two areas that I commented on. One was on, kind of a cap on the number of units or the number of buildings, which Mr. Bellavance provided some general ideas on, and then the one that he just commented on was the second area. So it would be in those two areas I'd be interested in seeing the actual language rather than acting on it tonight here and based on these general comments.
Suggestion of the clerk is that we have Mr. Bellavance define the language and present it back to us. We can do it as a full body, receive it, and vote on it as a full body, if that's okay by my fellow committee members. Councilor McGinn, please.
Yeah, then in that case, I would make a motion to move this out of committee with a favorable recommendation to the full council based on the most recent draft to be amended by Mr. Bellavance to address the two areas raised tonight. So moved.
You heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. Any comments? There being none, roll call, please.
Councilors McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Anything else, Mr. Bellavance? Any other items you'd like to bring up, subcommittee?
Move to adjourn.
You heard the motion. We are adjourned. Thank you.